Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Blue Sunday, proudly brought to you by the people at In the Blue Corner, and we are on the Jumper Punch channel. My name is Joseph Luzza, and we do not have Big Vincenz this week. We have DJ Rich, or Rash as he's known, and people will know him from the Sandpit, but he's in Melbourne at the moment. How are you, Rash?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, filling in for, big shoes for Vince.
Yeah, it
It's good to
is.
be in
And
Melbourne. Yeah.
before we start, Rash, we should send a big cheerio to Big Vince. Vince is convalescing. He's had a pretty serious operation during the week. He's been having his battles, and the Carlton Football Club haven't really done much to help him. So, So anyway, so to Vince, cheerio, and hope you get better soon and hope to see you pretty soon. Been a big week in football, been a big week all up, Rash, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Good
I'm
to be in
sure
Melbourne, Joe. Good to be in Melbourne. It's just a little bit too cold for me at the moment.
Yeah, I was just explaining to the guys off air. It's 41 degrees here in Bangkok, and they reckon it feels like 49 or 50. And I'll let me tell you, I'm feeling every one. Rash, I'm sure you're a royalist. You would have been glued to the TV last night.
No, not really. No,
And well, here's something that I thought to all the side chicks. There's always a chance. So I'm sure Charlie is that. Hey, just before we do start on the football, I was walking down the street yesterday. I came across this shop. Don't know what they do. I went in there and dropped one, and they said, "No, that's not what we do here." So, I think I went in there and gave it my best shot, but they just kicked me out. Anyway,
oh God,
not to worry. We're here to talk a bit of football. So I'll be Big Vincenz this week, and I'll go through the games very quickly.
yeah,
and I know a lot of you are waiting to hear from our 1979 Premiership player, Peter Brown, who, let me tell you, he's fired up, as are most supporters. But let's go through the games. On Saturday, we had Richmond 15-14 defeat West Coast. West Coast are gone and they got another injury. That was followed by the Geelong Cats 14-14-98 defeated Adelaide 11-6-72. Wasn't a bad game. I must admit I've watched all of it because of the temperature here. Then this was a really good game. I thought the Gold Coast Suns were going to pinch this 13-7-85 to the Demons 13-12. Good teams find ways to win, unlike our beloved Blues. Then we watched the Dogs and the GWS Giants. Big blow for them. They had no Toby Green. Don't know if it would have made a difference. So GWS 10-11-71 to the Bulldogs 13-8-86. Then we've got Fremantle 18-9, 117 defeated the Hawks 7-6-48. There's some pretty one-sided games this year, but anyway. Then we've got today. I was watching this, barracking very hard for Port. They were 12-20, trying to kick their way out of the game to Essendon 13-9-87. Any Essendon supporters? Please explain that jumper. They looked like some women's sanitary pad running around the ground. It was all red. It was disgraceful. It was shocking. And then we've got Collingwood going on their winning way, 11-11-77 to 6-12-48. And as I speak, the siren has just blown in the North Melbourne St Kilda game. So North Melbourne 4-10-34, St Kilda 8-16-64. The ladder, I had to do this before the last game, but you will notice that St Kilda will now leapfrog ahead of Port and Geelong. So that's the only change. Carlton, thanks to Essendon's loss, managed to stay in the top 8. So Rash, without further ado, I'm going to bring on the man that everyone loves to hear. He's become a cult idol on our show, 1979 Premiership player, Peter Brown. Good afternoon, Peter. How are you today?
Good evening, Joe. Good evening, Rash. Good evening, listeners.
Yes, and I must apologise. We are an hour earlier this week than our normal time. That's because yours truly, I have to go to a trade show in about an hour and a bit. So I do apologise. I've got to set up a booth. So that's why we're a little bit early. Peter, we saw on Friday night our beloved Blues go down 11-8-74 to 15-10-100. Let's just go through a few of the major stats. Peter and Rash, please feel free to shout out if you want me to stop and you want to comment on anything. Disposals, Carlton are on the left and the Brisbane Lions are on the right. I found this quite amazing that our disposal efficiency was just as good as the Eagles, as good as the Lions. I don't know if that's good or bad because I thought that we turned the ball over way too often. We make dumb decisions. And you know what? I know they're professional footballers, and I know when you're out in the heat of the battle, as Peter will tell you, that things are a lot easier sitting in the grandstand or sitting in front of the TV. But, you know, to consistently turn the ball over, I just don't get it. Stoppages, Pitane really dominated the hitouts, but they won the clearances. Let me talk a little bit more about that, and I'm sure Peter's got a few words to say about Patrick Cripps and Lachie Neale and Josh Dunkley later on. Possessions were pretty even. As you can see, Carlton won the turnovers. At least we won something on the night. Defence, we won the tackles, but they had more tackles inside 50. No bounces. I thought Saad took a couple of bounces, which I don't. One percenters, I don't know how they measure one percenters. And then marks and scoring. I thought Brisbane, and Peter was saying this off air, they controlled the game with their tempo. So I guess that's probably why they controlled the marks. And as we know, Carlton were only in front for 5 minutes and the Brisbane Lions were in front for predominantly most of the game. I'll come to that in a minute. Peter, give us some words of wisdom. The viewers want to know, what is wrong at Carlton?
I did say last week before we closed the podcast down that I thought that if Brisbane were going to win the game, they needed to control the centre. Well, they controlled the centre, and the pleasing part about, from Brisbane's point of view, I would imagine, was that they haven't been a terrific stoppage side, particularly more so in their forward 50 in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Yet this week they were able to choke us and shut us down. The surprising part is that I thought Pitane got beaten in the hitouts, and as a result of that, and I'm not sure, McInerney's a big body, and he, I just thought he controlled what I believed was more effective hitouts than what we had. Now, definitely our midfield got beaten and beaten badly. And you made a point before about Cripps. If I was Carlton, I'd be smart enough to manage Patrick Cripps in the next 2 weeks. I would actually, because he's not right. There's something terribly wrong. He's got a heavily strapped shoulder, and there was on a couple of occasions I noticed he actually grabbed his shoulder through the game. I've said before that his defensive work is terrible, and I haven't shied away from that. And as a result of that, Dunkley gave him an absolute caning. On the footy show today, they actually highlighted the fact that in the last 3 weeks, we've got Dawson gave him a hiding. Then we've got Steele that gave him a touch-up, and now Dunkley's done the same thing this week. So for mine, as a captain of the side, you're supposed to be leading by example. You're not supposed to be in a situation where your performance isn't managed correctly. Now, and I've said this before as well, I believe they could have made some changes. If I was Voss, I would have moved him forward and brought perhaps Charlie up the ground a little bit more, so get him into the game. As it was, Charlie's resources were wasted down there. Our small forwards, again, didn't contribute with the amount of goal-scoring opportunities than what they should have. We're in a situation where Charlie and Bailey, I think it was from the Lions, they both contributed 7 of their 15 goals, right?
Yeah, Zach Bailey.
So that makes it very, very easy for the other forwards or the midfielders to come in and contribute. Our turnovers in our back line were horrendous. There is no excuse for that rubbish. One of our most experienced defenders, who's Wiedering, turned the ball over twice, of which both they kicked goals from. And then there was another turnover that was forced in the back line where Silvani got caught. Now, the footage showed that there were 3 Carlton players lining up for the handball. Sorry, 2 Carlton players lining up for the handball, and Silvani had the ball. Not one of those players put a body on any of the Brisbane players, and as a result of that, Silvani got caught in the forward line, dropping the ball, free kick, Charlie kicks a goal. To me, that is just not on. And where did we... And I know, listen, guys, I know I'm going to ramble on a bit, but what really pissed me off was the way in which we manage our players. Kennedy was on the bench up until probably a quarter and a half in the game to go. He comes on, he gets 13 possessions, kicks a bloody goal, and looked like at least he was going to contribute through the midfield. Why would you take Young off the ground, who had kept Hipwood quiet, and be in a situation where you take Young off and then all of a sudden Hipwood becomes an influence in the game? I don't understand that rationale at all.
Yeah.
So I believe that again, and I say this, greatest respect, but I say we were out-coached. I thought that Brisbane's moves were more telling, and I think their job was made easier because we weren't doing what we were supposed to be doing. So if that's my rant, and that's the editorial.
For those of you that watch the Jumper Punch, I think that's a rant to rival Rocco's rant. He might have to come back and give you a rant back. I think we could have a rant-a-thon. I think the rant debate.
Brownie, if I may,
yeah,
you mentioned about Lewis Young going off. I think that was, if just naked eye, it just looked like it was emotion that I don't think he was playing that well. I mean, he had a couple of stuff-ups, of course, but it almost felt like that last goal that Zach Bailey took, where he hand passed to him. He looked like just Voss was like, right, we're done with you, So, and he took him off. Not that it was the best move strategically, because we needed him at all in the back. But I think that's what it felt like to me. So it looked like they just took him off because he was pretty poor, I think.
Well, if you could put a couple of forwards in amongst there too, if you wanted to, Rash. To be honest with you, at least what he did have was that he had a bigger body presence on Hipwood, and as a result of that, Hipwood didn't have an influence on the game early. Until after Young was sat down. Now, for mine, that to me it highlighted the lack of leadership in that back half on that game. That suggested to me that there was no one that was taking any responsibility. Half the time, the players were looking at one another, going, "Oh, it wasn't me. No, it wasn't me." And it wasn't anybody. And at the end of the day, Brisbane virtually just walked through. And interestingly enough, Charlie got 2 of his goals from out the back of packs, right? And running in virtually into an open goal. Well, hang on for a minute. The job of a backman is to put a body on a player, not to let him run free. and be in a situation where he can be a damaging type player. And we didn't do that. We didn't have a body on it.
Peter, do you think too many? I think I've said this a couple of weeks ago. Our backs don't seem to punch, except Wiedering, and he punches when he should mark. Do you think that our backmen just don't know how to defend? Or do you think they're being selfish, like playing for the stats? Or because, Bruce Doull used to play some games and he'd get 4 touches and people would go, oh, what a great game he played, right? Because his opponent didn't get a kick. But these days, I think everyone wants to get a stat. It's all this fantasy footy and, we don't have a general. We don't have a general down there.
Well, Joe, I've been saying that right from the start of the season, so I haven't changed my view on that. But the situation that I believe what's going on down there is that there isn't enough people that are prepared to put their hand up and say, hey, listen, Wiedering, that's not good enough. Get over there and do what you need to do, rather than be in a situation where, oh, no, we just won't say anything and we'll just let it go on normally. Now, the other thing that, and guys, I've got to say, I had a reunion today. Right?
I was just going to mention that, yeah. Tell us about it.
So I had a reunion. It was 79, 81, 82. So we had about 30 or 40 players there. And the elephant in the room was very simply this, right? They were really annoyed and pissed off with the effort that these players are showing and the disrespect that they're showing in the Carlton football jumper. The players that were there are champions. And I've said this before, I won't put myself in that category because I was a hack. But I'm telling you that there are players there that would be absolutely disgusted with the with the lack of or the non-commitment of being able to respect that jumper. And to me, it does my head in to think that we've got a situation here where we've got a very proud tradition. This club's over 150 years old, and we're in a situation where we're turning in pathetic performances like that and being in a situation where we're showing disrespect to those champion players of a bygone era. Yes, I understand that things are different. Yes, I understand the world has changed. However, there's one thing that hasn't changed, and that is that there is a football match to win. And to win it, you've got to beat your opponent and not just run alongside him and think that everything's going to go your way.
Peter, when off air, we were talking about the end of the game, and you said, about Patrick Cripps going up with Joe Danaher and having a big laugh. And what was the consensus in the room that you're in today about that?
Pissed right off.
And
pissed right off. The thing is, and Frank Marcazzani actually summed this up beautifully. If you came off the ground laughing and joking and giggling and carrying on, by Jesus, you paid for it the next week. Particularly in a loss. If you win, winners are grinners, but losers shouldn't disrespect the club and the jumper.
Now, there's nothing wrong with going up and shaking an opponent's hand and saying, well played. But if you want to have a bit of a giggle and a laugh, I think that's something that you do behind closed doors, not in front. We were playing a respect round, right? I think we respect everybody except 2 people, the club and the supporters. Well, where's the respect shown for the supporters and the jumper? Well, where's the respect for the jumper?
Well, the supporters showed their displeasure at 3/4 time when 10,000 or more of them got up and walked out of the stadium.
Yeah, and I wasn't there, obviously, and they were booing at 3/4 time, weren't they?
Well,
yep.
I understand that. I understand the fact that people are booing. When was the last time you saw Collingwood get booed? Where was it? As I said last week, guys, Collingwood's the side that everyone respects now. Who respects Carlton? No one respects Carlton.
No. Do you know? Sorry, Pete. Keep going.
No, you go, Joe. Go, Joe.
I was going to say, one thing I will say about Carlton supporters, right? The one thing, they are loyal. I mean, I was there in the good days, and I was there when, we lost all those draft picks and we were finishing last, right? And we still had big numbers of supporters turn up. Not like Richmond and Collingwood and Essendon. When they're losing, the supporters don't go. Carlton supporters stick with them. But to serve that sort of rubbish up and then to go, I heard Michael Voss's press conference. He goes, I was really pleased with the effort. Well, sorry, if there's no effort, then don't be out in the ground. Don't accept a paycheck, right? So no one ever questions the effort. But what they question is, where they just give up and they put that. And you can tell, Rash, you can tell us as being a mental coach, right? Hands on hips. The biggest sign of giving up, and your head dejected. And then when I worked at Myer, we used to have the Myer salute. And when the boss used to say whose fault was it, we'd go like that. It was his fault or his fault. Not my fault, right? The Myer coat of arms, we used to call it. Whose fault? And that's that. And have a look at them. They just do it.
Joe, physiology, especially in mental coaching stuff, is super important. Even when you're down, pick it up. You watch. I don't know if you guys watched the Collingwood game today. You just watch them. Their physiology just shows that they know they're going to run off teams in the last quarter. They know it. The physiology, even if they make a mistake, Maynard makes a mistake or whatever they do, they pick each other up and go, "Come on, we can do this. Let's go." We don't have that. So I think I wanted to ask you, Brownie. Obviously, you played the game and you know a lot better than us. But if you could pinpoint things, I know it's a combination of things. For me, I'm thinking it's got to do with coaching. The message is not clear and simple. We don't have the smartest players, but is that what you think? Because it could mean it just needs a little bit of a tweak, right? But I don't think it needs that, because I think from the start of the year, when I watched the practice game against Sydney this year, I thought, no, we've gone backwards.
Well, I'm in a situation here where I'm only going to comment on this purely and simply by saying this. I have been very critical of our list management for a long time. And what tends to happen is that, our top 25 players at this level, and then the rest of the list drops off dramatically. And we're in a situation where we try and put all of our eggs in one basket, the big money. Joe, you made the point before we came on air about the fact that, you got DeConning that, has paid less than 50 games, and he's going to be in a situation where he's going to be demanding, 800 plus a year. Now, I've been a massive critic of players earning their stripes and being in a situation where they're paid accordingly for their abilities. As it is now, these big contracts are given out, et cetera, and what sort of incentives are there for them to bloody well turn up each week and actually perform each week? They don't have to. It's all about the money. It's all about them being in a situation where they get paid a lot of money to do bugger all. Now, a point in case is Harry Mackay. Now, I know each week I give him a bit of a smash around the top of the head, but, his job is to kick goals. And if he doesn't kick goals, then he shouldn't get paid the big bucks not to kick goals. So our back guys, they're there to defend. If they don't defend, they shouldn't get paid big bucks not to defend. It's the same with our midfielders. If we go out and we buy midfielders to bring in so they can bolster our ranks, and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing through the midfield, why pay them?
Yeah, but Brownie, I reckon it's got to do with the leadership. I'm not just talking about leadership on the ground. I'm talking about the coach, right?
Funny you say that, Rash.
What's that?
Sorry to interrupt you. It's funny you say that, right? I don't think it's just the coach, right? I think it goes further. I think it's the board, it's the management team, it's the coaching panel, and it's the players. It is a club. This is what people forget, right? It's called a football club. If not, it'd just be called the Carlton football team, which would rely on the coach and the players. We are a rabble, right, at the moment. What's Luke Sayers said? What's Brian Cook said? Oh, they bought $1 million worth of fucking wine. when they went to Adelaide. That's the only news you got out of the bloody weekend in Adelaide, that they spent, some Carlton influential supporters spent $1 million on wine. How about worrying about the performances on the field? How about worrying about player welfare? How about worrying about respecting the jumper and the supporters? I bet you half of those, I remember, I think I can't remember who it was. A friend of mine played at St Kilda, right, when I was in school. And he said, I'll never forget, he was in HSC at the time, and he came into to school on Tuesday, because he got asked to go to training on Monday. And we
What was
asked
his
him,
name, Joe?
Jeff Greetham.
Yeah, I know Jeff.
Yeah, and I asked Jeff, I said, how was training? And he said, I didn't touch a football. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, they showed us a video for 3 hours about the history of the St Kilda Football Club. Right? And, being a young kid, we're like, why would they do that? And he's going, well, I don't know. And I said, well, what'd you take out of it? And he goes, well, not much, because he's a kid, right? But this is what I would say that half of our players, Jack Silvani probably, because the way he's raised, half of them wouldn't know who half of our senior players are, who our champions are. They couldn't tell you premierships. They couldn't tell you what years. I reckon you could walk in there and I'd go, oh, this is Peter Brown. And they'd go, yeah, hi, I'm Joe. They wouldn't know. And I'm not saying they have to know everything, but to me, that just shows that there is absolutely no respect shown. And it's all about me. We've got this me generation.
That reunion I had today, that reunion I had today, Joe, there was actually an invite extended out to Shane O'Sullivan to actually invite some of the players along to actually have a look to see what it actually meant to be in a part of this sort of situation. Now, the reality is the way that our side looks like now, they're never going to experience a premiership.
No.
They're never going to experience a finals experience, right? Yet those players could have walked in and actually seen, club champions like Jeff Southby, Wayne Harms, McClure, Mark Koo, Shell. You can go through the names. If I've forgotten, Val Perovic was there, for goodness sake. I mean, all of those names, all of those champion type players, and to see them hurting the way that they're hurting was just disheartening.
Yeah.
It was mind-blowing.
Well, there's an old Italian saying, Rash, the fish stinks from the head.
No, I understand that. I know that. And obviously it's like, even if you relate to great organizations, right? Like companies, same sort of thing, right? You got your team down, on the floor or whatever. It usually starts from the top.
Exactly.
A simple mission. This is what we're going to do. And then on the ground, so there is obviously there's a disconnect for sure. But I would like to know what's gone wrong from last year, the first 10 rounds. That's my question.
Rash, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but there's been a disconnect at this club for the last bloody 30-odd years.
So do you think it was like a sugar rush? Like we just got Voss the first year, first 10 rounds, and then it's gone back to normal?
Well, there was a honeymoon period, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there was a fresh voice. There was a fresh approach to things and things like that. Well, the expectation was that fresh approach was going to actually not only evolve, but also create further opportunity in the second year. But it's not. It's not. If plan A doesn't work, plan B, there ain't none.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah, I just don't understand even some of our disposal. I just don't get it. That's why I'm sitting here and I'm not a coach, right? But in all honesty, I don't think Brisbane played a great game on Friday night either.
Not at all.
Right?
I reckon it was a 5, 6 out of 10. Max.
That just shows you how bad we were.
Yeah, they didn't. But what they did do was that they actually controlled space. And they actually worried the Carlton players out of it. It got to the point where Carlton players were very hesitant to try anything. We tried going through the middle on a couple of occasions, And I go back to that point in the third quarter where we had to have that 50-metre penalty to put us over halfway. And we scored an actual goal out of it, but the umpire must have felt sorry for us and gave us a 50-metre penalty. And no one knew what the 50-metre penalty was for. They reckon it was a, invasion of territory or whatever. But at the end of the day, they were able to release some players and away they go. But, I mean, if the umpire hadn't intervened, we'd be in a situation where I think the ball would still be sitting in our back half.
Yeah. Here's a good comment. Go, Rash, go.
I was going to say, I mean, we're complaining. What type of solutions can we look at? Like, what do you guys think as possible solutions to get the team back to where it should be? I think we all agree, and anyone that looks at, I speak to my friends, they'll tell me, Carlton's got a top 4 list on paper, right? Or are we overrating the players? We've got the spine, but what can be done? Is it? I mean, we're not going to sack another coach because we know that's the same thing we've done. It hasn't worked.
Well, yeah, I don't think. Yeah, go, Brownie.
Yeah, well, for mine, I think it's discipline. An example of that is our small forwards. We don't lock the ball into our forward 50. The attacking backmen seem to be able to slip away from us very, very quickly and be able to go into attack. So there's no discipline. Leadership is a big thing for me, and confidence in the leadership. I don't think there's any confidence in the leadership at all. It's interesting, isn't it?
You mean players as leadership, or are you talking about across the board?
No, I'm talking right across the board. I'm talking about on field and obviously off field as well. If you want to set yourself up as a corporate club, that's okay. But along with that comes the responsibility of running a football organisation. And a football organisation's job to do is win. Is not to just turn up on a Saturday and chase the pigskin around and hope to God everything falls into place. Everyone got carried away with the West Coast thing. And, all that Brisbane did was just put us all back into perspective. This competition is in any given day and in any given circumstance can turn in a heartbeat. But the reality is that if you don't have the correct leadership and you don't have the correct mental toughness, you can't actually play this game. Now, Rash,
go, Brownie. No, you go.
You said that, your field is psychology and in and around that sort of field. Yep. Well, and I've said this for numerous times now, right? The game is a simple game. You have the ball, Rash, or I have the ball, Rash, or Joe's going to be the one that's going to be in dispute. So I've got to get the ball off you, or you've got to get it off me, or we've both got to get it off Joe. So which one is it? And then we're in a situation where we've got the commitment to be able to do that week in and week out. If you mentioned before, Rash, that if you're having a bad day and your mind's not right or something like that, you can still contribute by making sure that your opponent doesn't get the ball, even if you go completely negative, right? And play a negative role rather than an attacking type role. But that's not even happening. They haven't got the discipline to actually do that. They haven't got the discipline to go on, sorry.
How do you instill that discipline?
No,
how do you instill
coaching? That's got to do with coaching and learning behaviors. That's what it is. If you want to talk about psychology, that's setting up very, very simple goals, learning behaviors, and when things get triggered like that, how to combat that. That's all on the mental side.
Yeah, but Rash, I don't mean to be rude. I don't mean to be rude. Surely they must have those in place.
No,
surely.
No.
Well, you have to.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, then, what do they do when they say, "Oh, we reviewed last week's game"? What did they? Do they all get a bag of? They get a bag of popcorn and a Coke and just sit there and go and laugh at each other. Surely.
We're talking about something different here. No, we're talking about something different. I was talking about the mental side of things, the exercise of that. It's like training your body to get fit and strong. You can train the mind, the same sort of thing. I don't think they've got that. They're doing the other side. That's what I meant. So,
Yeah. But so how do you, what, but that's not like an exercise like a push-up or something, is it? Well, how do you do that sort of training?
The mental stuff?
Yeah.
You have a clear outline what you're trying to achieve with an objective for the mental side, and then you do it weekly until it becomes unconscious behavior.
But
that when you're under pressure, how to deal with the pressure, and then when someone does a turnover kick, how do we pick that person back up and say it's okay, we're gonna move forward.
Did anyone see the Collingwood game against Essendon? I think it was Maynard kicked out from fullback and he grubbed it, he shanked it, and the actual Essendon player came in and kicked the goal. Did you see the Collingwood players all around him after he'd done that? Yeah. It was almost like, oh, okay, Braden, don't be too hard on yourself. Let's get you up and about. And the next contest that came down, Braden Maynard made sure he didn't screw up again.
Yep, 100%.
That's not what's happening.
Yeah, well, all I see at Carlton is they just pat the guy on the bum or they give him a fist pump and then just run away. I mean, and half of them just stick their fist out like this, like as if, hurry up and get it over with.
There's certain disciplines of which backmen can actually use, and I'm only talking because of playing as a forward and playing on some really good backmen over the years. But there are certain disciplines of which backmen do, and one of them is that when they're defending, they punch towards the boundary line, right? That's the first thing they do. Unfortunately, we're in a situation where a lot of our players don't do that. And when you've got that discipline in place, what tends to happen is that the players around you know where that ball's going to land. So what they do is that they run to position, or at least be in a situation where they can make a contest. That's not what's happening at Carlton. There's times when a backman has got to back himself, pardon the pun, and mark. And there are times when you've got to punch the ball. And for us, we have got our mindset so bad that even when we should be marking it, we're double fisting the thing away from the contest. And that's really sad because we're not backing ourselves.
Well, I don't think this is a quick fix, though, Rash and Pete.
I reckon it's a combination of things that need to get tweaked, but definitely the message needs to be clear. And I think it looks like it's definitely disjointed, for sure. I mean, one is mental, and the other part is actually just doing small things right and just going back to basics. I don't know, Pete, Brownie, you'd know more about that, but it just seems like we're not. Yeah, they look like they're confused. I mean, did anyone see what Newman did? Like where he gave up, where Charlie kicked the goal? Did anyone see that?
Yeah.
And he's had a great year. And in a way, I'm pretty happy that he's going to be off next week. He's got 1 week for what he did, but it's horrible, just disjointed. It's leadership.
The other question that springs to mind for mine is that if you could honestly look at one of the sides, take Collingwood, take Essendon, take whatever, and you have a look at their side and you go, do you think those 22 players that actually take the field, could they get a game in the Carlton Guernsey? Or if you reverse that and say those 22 Carlton players, could they get a game at Collingwood? And the reality is some of them can't.
No. Pete, before we came on air, we spoke about players. I think you said it was on the football show, our experienced players and their experience and having played finals, right? Let's have a look at who we've recruited in the last 5 years. So I'll just mention them and then you can tell us what we said. You got McGovern, big dollars. Zach Williams, big dollars. Okay, he's injured. Jack Martin, big dollars. Now, those first three have basically sat out more games than they've played.
Yep.
Because McGovern's always injured. I'm surprised he hasn't done an injury so far. Zach Williams, Jack Martin. Then we've recruited Adam Chera. Well, I suppose he's been serviceable. He had a great game on the weekend.
Yep.
Lewis Young. Who else? Sorry?
No, I'm saying I thought Chera had a great game too.
I thought he did too. I thought I didn't expect much from him last year, first year. Then you had Lewis Young. Who else is in that that you mentioned?
Who else was in there?
Marchbank?
No. Saad was
Saad,
was
he's been good. But actually, Rash, you made a good point. You got people like Kennedy, Marchbank, Plowman. Yeah, there was when Sauce was there was a myriad of fringe GWS players that came along, right? And George Hewitt. Someone's just mentioned Hewitt. Hewitt's been really he's dropped off from last year. It's like he's a different person. So, what were you telling us that they were saying, Peter, about these experienced players?
Right. What they were saying was that they had a list of players up, and Wiedering was in there as well, and all the more experienced players. I think these were the players that have played 100 games or more. So they were all up on the list. And then the finals appearances, and there was only one player that had a 1 with an asterisk against his name, and that was Saad. The rest of them have had no finals experience whatsoever. And quite frankly, the way that things are going now, it doesn't look like we're ever going to will have final experience with them. And
was
the
it
result,
or was it McGovern? I think McGovern had final experience in.
it might have been. Sorry, Rash.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rash. I stand corrected. McGovern. So he had an asterisk against his name. But
this is at Adelaide, yeah.
Apart from that, there was no other experience in that lot. Now we all know that once finals appearances come around, that's a different ball game altogether. So if you think it's tough in the regular season, wait until you get the bloody finals situation, and that just steps up a notch.
So talking about the mass walkout at 3/4 time, I don't know if you guys follow the English Premier League, but a couple of weeks ago, Tottenham played a game and that they got smashed by Newcastle, right? And the club reimbursed every supporter their entry fee for that game.
Wow.
Every supporter, even those with the season ticket, got the entry fee reimbursed to their bank account. Do you think we should be putting that to the Carlton management?
You probably won't get it up, Joe. I'm tipping you won't get it up as a possibility.
I was there, and so were my 9 alter egos.
Can I just say that, look, from my limited experience, but the buck stops with Cripps, the buck stops with Voss, and then the buck stops with Lloyd, and it keeps on going up. But those are the main guys that are somewhat responsible for what's happening on the ground, what's happening in the coaching, etc. And yeah, I think that they've got to do some. I mean, one thing for sure is the integrity of the player selections. Like everyone's been talking about it from fan camps and everything else. Kennedy coming on as a sub and keeping Curnow on, it just doesn't make sense. Ed Curnow, I mean, Motlop. I mean, you know, I don't think Voss is recognizing how players are completely out of form, and yet he's keeping him in. Fisher was an example. Honey hasn't had a good game since he's been. Motlop hasn't really set it on fire. I mean, you know, you've got to change it up. You got to see, you know, not that anyone's turning it up in the reserve so much, but there is opportunity out there, no?
One of the bugbears that I've got, Rash, is this. If you recall, Motlop kicked a goal, I think it was either 2 minutes and 45 seconds to go in the second or third quarter, right? And immediately kicked that goal. It might have been the second quarter, I think. I'm not sure. And with 2 minutes and 40 odd seconds left on the clock, they dragged him from the ground and he sat down, right? Now, you're talking about getting your head in the right space and everything like that to be able to contribute to the situation. If you've got a kid that's probably a little bit out of form and he's just kicked a goal, he's going to be up and about. He ain't going to be wanting to go and sit down and watch the next 2 minutes of disaster. He wants to be in amongst the action. He wants to be a part of it. So, you know, this rubbish of bloody well kicking a goal and then going and sitting on the bloody bench for 2 minutes or something like that, to me, that's just rubbish. And the other thing I noticed too, Joe, I don't know whether you noticed this or not, but if you recall 2 weeks ago, I said this crap about bloody coaches being on the boundary line and being in the situation where, you know, the touchy-feely bullshit, that he's actually up in the bloody box now.
The box.
Yeah. Now, okay, maybe he hasn't surrounded himself with the right people in terms of being able to advise him with particularly backs, forwards and mids and stuff like that. But quite honestly, He gets a better overview of sitting up in the box and what you do at ground level and getting a better appreciation of what's going on.
Just on the players being dragged, whenever the coaches get asked, they always go, "Oh, well, it was a planned rotation." What? They knew that Motlop was going to kick a goal with 2 minutes into the quarter. I really don't understand. You see these guys kick a goal and then they sprint off the ground. I mean,
well, the big forwards don't. The big forwards don't go off the ground.
Exactly.
It's weird because why would you stop momentum? It doesn't make sense.
Hang on. To me, if you've got a player that's actually on, you would keep him on as long as you could. If he's knackered, then sit him down for a few minutes. But if he's on, don't take him off the ground, for Christ's sake. All that's doing is just unsettling shit. And all that does is just knock his confidence around.
Yeah. We're getting a few comments about people saying, oh, so-and-so coaches from the boundary line and so-and-so coaches from the box. I think it's horses for courses. I personally, and Peter's probably the same, I think you get a better perspective if you're up in a box. You can see you can see the whole field and you can see things a bit more clearly. But look,
hang on, Joe, clearly not. I mean, what was this crap with Gunston we had 17 players in the back half of the ground, and Gunston was still able to lead into space and take a mark and kick a bloody goal. So clearly, and I wasn't at the ground, but I could imagine that if you were at the ground, you would have got a better perspective on how many players and where they were standing and what sort of space they were supposed to be occupying, and yet he was still clearly able to run into space and kick a goal.
I'm going to show you a picture, and first of all, I'm going to tell you something. After the Carlton West Coast game, Michael Voss said, our forwards know what they've got to do. We've instructed them. They know that they're not to fly together.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
All day.
Yeah,
right?
Good luck with that. Look, there has been occasions.
But apparently he's told them.
Yeah.
They've worked it out.
Look, in fairness, there has been occasions when they've worked it out correctly, right?
Yeah,
I'm not going to be completely harsh on them. However, I did make this point last week, and that is it's like the Australian cricket side. They have a left-hand and a right-hand opening batsman, right? Now, we've got this wonderful opportunity in front of us where we've got two forwards. One's a left footer, the other one's a right footer. Surely to Christ, they can work it out that they can use that to their advantage. And anybody out there that's played basketball, if you've ever played basketball and you've got a left-hand dribbler on a basketball court, they are the hardest people to defend because they've got their body between you and the ball. So the same thing occurs with a left and a right footer. If you use that to advantage, you can actually use it to actually score and be in a situation where you can actually control.
So, Pete, some of the people on the comments are saying, did we get the wrong coach in not picking Ross Lyon?
Well, from my understanding, Ross Lyon didn't want it. Nor did Brad Scott, and nor did Alistair Clarkson. So, what do they know that we don't? Us mugs on the sidelines.
I don't know, but I'm just saying. Well, the rumor was that Ross was offered the job, but he didn't want to come and partake in an interview process. Whereas at St Kilda, they just offered him the job. Well, I think that's if that's the case, then I didn't want him because he's not a god. There's nothing harmful in coming in and having a chat.
No.
Well, Andy's saying they didn't want it because of the board, probably. Ross was shot down due to the internal working politics.
Whoa.
I don't know. Look, it's the same when people are saying, have a look at Stocker and Setterfield and Phillips and stuff at other clubs. They all had their fair chance at our club, right?
Yep.
People don't want to admit it, but I know an inside story about Liam Stocker. I'm not going to say it up here. I know I know his godfather, and his godfather's told me a lot of stories. Same with Setterfield. He was never going to displace Cripps, Hewitt, and Kennedy, right? So I don't blame him. I think the same's going to happen with Patrick Dow, to be honest. I think Paddy Dow's going to go to another club because he's obviously not getting a chance at Carlton.
Well, the question was asked about Paddy Dowd today at the function that I was at, and they were saying, why the hell, he's tearing it up in the twos. Why isn't he bloody well up, mixing it up with the big boys where he's supposed to be paid to play?
He's a number 3 draft pick.
Doesn't matter. About
I'm not saying but obviously someone saw something in him, Rash. You know,
number 2. There's been a lot of hacks that have come out in top 10. I mean, he should be good. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he should be good.
You know what? I'll qualify that by saying this. We went to Adelaide with the expectation that we were going to put in a really good performance over in Adelaide. And Adelaide are a side of virtually no names.
Yeah.
There's some players there that have been around the traps a bit and stuff like that. And they actually showed our big names how to play. And the difference was that Adelaide actually want to play for one another. They actually want to play for the coach. They actually want to play for the colours that they're actually wearing. And this is where, for mine, at least, if you haven't got those aspects together, then you haven't got a side. You haven't got a nucleus of a side. And look, I've said this all along, right? And I'm not making any bones about this, and I'll say it again. If you're going to build a side, you build the spine of the side first, right? And they're your key, your core. Then what you do is that you have your bloody outrunners, and I call them outrunners, which are all your flankers and everything like that. So to my mind, that doesn't look like we've been able to nail that. We haven't got a reasonable centre-half back. We don't have a reasonable fullback. We don't have a reasonable general. We don't have what I would call a dedicated centre-half forward. We have 2 blokes that are playing virtually out of full forward and trying to get in their way of one another. And then you've got these small forwards that aren't contributing on a weekly basis. Now, Rash, I don't know whether you caught the show last week, but we had Vin Cottaggio on. And Vin was in a situation where he was talking about the fact that the Mosquito Fleet, every one of those Mosquito Fleet players that were playing, they contributed at least 1 goal a game each. Shit, that makes the big forwards' job a lot easier to actually be able to contribute. And that was the point I made earlier when you got Charlie and you got Bailey that kicked 7 of their 15 goals. So,
well, sorry, Pete.
No, I was just going to say the pressure comes off your big forwards when you got your small forwards doing and your mids doing what they have to do.
Yeah, I guess. Well, we could talk on this for hours. Go on.
I was just going to say,
I don't think they do. I don't think
the
they
main
do.
Point, the main point is like what you're saying, and what I noticed with Adelaide or even with the Saints is that they play for each other.
Absolutely.
And I don't see that. We're just going on individual brilliance. Wiedering has to have a killer game, or Cripps or Walsh, and we've been worked out on the coaching side. I think that those are the 2 key things.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Anyway.
Well, I'm going to throw one out there for you, boys. I reckon it's time that Cripps gave away the captaincy.
Do you think?
Yep.
Why's that?
I don't think he's a born leader, to be honest with you.
I
think he's a very good player. I just don't think he's a born leader.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess. People, we've been getting those comments. Sorry, Rash. A lot of people are saying that he shouldn't be captain, and they should give it to Doherty.
Well, you could give it to Doherty. Walsh, I would consider as well. I think as a leader of the club, nice kid, all that sort of thing, but as a born leader, no, not for mine.
Well, there you have it. First here that Peter Brown is saying that Peter Cripps. Patrick Cripps, as good a player he is not a leader. The best player is not always the captain. I know in junior clubs it is, but in AFL football, the best player is not always the captain.
Absolutely not. The best captains are the leaders.
Yeah, exactly. The one who puts their body on the line and who leads by example.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Maybe Charlie Curnow.
Well, I put in Selwood from Geelong in that category. I put in Hodge from Hawthorn. I put in those types of players. They're born leaders.
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay, well, we can talk about this for ages, but people, have your say. So let's go to the votes. I'll put them up. Peter, I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
Yep. Gee, that's not a bad photo, is it, really? When you think about it, I had hair, Joe.
1979 grand final, lining up for goal in the mud.
Yeah. I gave 3 votes to Adam Shearer. I thought his performance, all-round performance all day, I thought was there. I thought it was one of his better contributing games for the club so far. And I think he's well worth investing into. Our old skipper, Doherty, I thought, just his toughness. He straightens us up. He started off in the forward line for a starter, kicked a goal, and I just thought his work around the ground was pretty good. And then Blake Acres is starting to assert his authority on a wing. Now he's covering some ground. I said this last week, and he not only is in a situation where he defends, but he also moves forward and creates some opportunity up forward. I'd like to see him hit the scoreboard a little bit harder than what he has been. I might add that I made the comment today that Ollie Hollands, I think over the Christmas break, I think they'll bulk him up a bit because he's too easily pushed aside, and for him to hold down a key wing position. And I'll actually throw something else out there. Some of the changes that we should have been making on the day, I would have tried something like Charlie Curnow behind the ball. And, if you wanted to change it up, throw bloody Wiedering up forward or put him on a wing or something like that. Just change it around a little bit. As it is now, we've got no plan B. But anyway, I just sort of throw that up. So Adam Shearer, Sam Doherty, and Blake Acres.
Now, Rash, you did Vince's votes, and coincidentally, Vince texted in his votes, and they were exactly the same. So, Would you like to read them out?
Yeah, no, I gave Shearer 3. I thought he's having a great season, and he was just tough. He actually worked hard all day. I thought Doherty, similar to what Brownie was saying, I thought he was consistent. I mean, it was his 150th, by the way. No one mentioned it, but it was his 150th, and I expected more from the team. And I put Kennedy as 1 vote because he made impact immediately. And again, I'm going to harp on it. He should have been in, and maybe Ed Keno should have been the sub or out. So they're my 3-2-1. And
I gave Shearer 3 votes. I thought he was out clearly our best player. I gave Blake Acres 2. I know people say Blake Acres makes a fair few turnovers, but I don't care. At least he's getting his hands on the ball. He's trying some things. He's trying to run, so that's okay. And again, Matt Kennedy, I still don't know how he was the substitute, but when he came on, I thought, thank God. But then I heard when they took Lewis Young off, I thought, what the F is Mr. Voss thinking about? But anyway, and here is our leaderboard. We'll have to buy the guy a prize. Charlie Curnow is out in front on 27. He's had 3 perfect games. Followed by Sam Walsh in second, who missed the first 4 games. So that shows you how good all the others are. Then we've got Shearer, Cripps, and Newman on 11. Acres and Doherty on 10. Hewitt, 8. Lewis Young, 6. And Ed Curnow, 5. And Ed Curnow's only had really 1 game. So I think it might be time for Ed to give up the boots, to hang up the boots, so to speak. Now it's time for one of our other favourite parts of the show.
Beautiful kick from Brown. That's a magnificent kick. Look at that. He was inside the centre square when he kicked that for a goal.
That was a 70-metre torp, wasn't it, Brownie?
Yeah, I let fly with that one. I actually got hold of that. That was that was in North Melbourne, I think. I was enjoying a reasonable day out that day. Anyway,
well done, and our Brownie points goes to
Matt Kennedy. Absolutely, his performance when he came onto the ground was exceptional. I know you guys that he figured in some of the votes there, but for mine, his Brownie points this week undoubtedly is Matt Kennedy.
That's it. Okay, so we move on to next week. Carlton versus Western Bulldogs. Pete, I want you to give us some possible omissions and possible inclusions and who's going to win.
Well, I think I said it before, guys. I think what realistically the club has to do at this point in time is manage Cripps.
Okay.
Now, I would like to see that. And the reason why I say that is that, to my mind, his body is just not there, and he's got to be in a situation where he's got to toughen up mentally. I think because his defensive game of his repertoire is not there, and he's just in a situation where, to my mind, and I'll be brutally honest, sometimes he just looks disinterested and not switched on, not like a captain should be. And I said this point before, after the game, if you're standing around laughing and giggling and carrying on like little schoolgirls, to me that's just not setting the right example. And for mine, if your opponent is going and tearing you up, then you do what Jack Steele does, which is you sacrifice your own game and then go and take the other bloke out of it that is making a mockery of it. And Dunkley was, for mine, last week was best on the ground by a mile. He gave Cripps an absolute bath, and he also bloody well showed what a tall midfielder should be, and not in a situation where and the point was made today by Kane Corns on the Footy Show. He said very clearly, it's very evident now, no Cripps, no Carlton. And to me, that tears my heart out, because Carlton's not about one player. Carlton's about bloody well 18 blokes or 22 blokes taking that field and making sure that they do the best they can for that club and the supporter base. So for my mind, manage Cripps. Curnow gone. Get rid of him, put him in the twos.
Right? That's Ed Curnow?
Ed Curnow, put him in the twos, right?
Newman's out suspended. Out suspended. Well, we're all going to think Newman's out suspended. He's been offered one match.
Yeah. That is sad, because Newman, even though you made the point before, Rash, but Newman's games this year have been quite good. I mean, he's taken guys like Toby Green out of the game. He's taken guys like Kelly out of the game and stuff like that, and he's done a really good job tagging those players. So he'll be out, and I would suspect that either Motlop or Durnan might be rested. I would imagine. I'm putting that mildly and politely. I would bring Kennedy in straight away. I wouldn't even hesitate. And what I would do, if they're not going to manage Cripps, I'd put him in the forward line so that it actually allows some other rotations through the midfield. I think Paddy Dowd might have to come in. And I would say I would give him an opportunity. Motlop, I've got a question mark over Motlop. I don't think Owie would get back in as yet.
What about Honey?
Honey's
got to go.
No, Honey's got to go. As a mid forward, I won't call him a small forward. I'll call him a mid forward. He's not contributing enough for mine. So I think, and we've got a major problem. If we can't lock that forward 50 down, and the sides are starting to wake up to it, they're just going to walk through us. And the discipline of that needs to be improved.
Yeah. I I tend to agree. I don't think they'll drop Cripps. He does need a spell, but I don't think they'll have the balls to do it. I think they'll probably drop Newman. Well, Newman's out. To be honest, I don't even think they've got the balls to drop Ed Curnow. Maybe he's like the Shetland pony for his brother. Like the horses need a Shetland pony, but I would get rid of him. Kennedy's got to come in. You got to try Dow. People have talked about Cunningham. I don't know if he's even fit or playing in the VFL. There's a young bloke there that I hear great raps of, Jackson Binns. So I don't know. Maybe we give him a go, but I don't know. But anyway, Pete.
The other thing that I would do, Joe, is that I'd start Mackay on the bench.
Okay.
I'd move Cripps to the forward line, start Mackay on the bench.
Yeah.
And bring Curnow out to centre half forward.
Sorry, Rash, go for it, mate.
I was going to say, I'll wait till you finish, but I've got a couple of inclusions I would put.
Go for it. Tell us.
Well, I was going to say, if you're going to put Paddy Dow in, you got to give him a block. Don't get him one.
Yes, three or four games, like they did Josh.
We're committing. That's it. You're going in. We're going to back you up. Here's your chance. 3-4 weeks. You do it. You don't do it. You're out by the end of the year. That's it. That's his thing. I think you got to. The other one is for Newman. I would say that Boyd will come in, plays the same role. So I think that's a really good and a little bit of what I watched of the reserves on the weekend. I think he played pretty solid. And I would probably, Ollie, I would rest him. I would actually probably put Cottrell in if he's ready.
Okay.
And Ed Curnow for sure and Honey have to go. So it could be 5 changes.
Well, I don't think they've got the balls to do it, but let's see.
They have to. Because it all comes back to Voss at the end of the day. Believe me, if Curnow has another shit game, and it's obvious he's not up to it. He's done.
Yeah, maybe.
It's cool.
Pete, who's going to win?
If we'd have got away with the game on Friday night, I would have said, I would have said Carlton. I know this is going to piss a lot of supporters off, but I'm going to tip the Bulldogs.
Okay.
I think, I just don't think, and I think we'll struggle to match up on the Bulldogs mids, to be honest with you. I think English is in pretty good form, and I think what's the guy that is the full forward for the Doggies?
Norton, Aaron Norton.
Norton, he's due, and I think he's just too quick for Weitering and that mob. I think he'll actually have a bit of a day out, and I think the small forwards of the Dogs will play havoc.
Okay. Rash, you're doing this for Vince?
I actually think that Carlton will win. I think they'll probably hoodwink us to give us another injection of positivity. And we'll be sold and hoodwinked, as Rocco says. I think in general, if you look at the last 5 or 6 games, we tend to have the wood over the Dogs. Correct me if I'm wrong. We tend to win more than we lose against the Dogs. But I'm not solidly convinced, unless they have like at least 5 changes.
I think it's also going to come down to one thing too, Rash, and that is that who's going to be more hungry, who wants it more, who's prepared to put it on the line. Because let me tell you, from what I've seen recently, we're not prepared to put it on the line.
No. Well, I was going to tip the Dogs, but I think Carlton will win, and then the week after we'll get flogged against Melbourne. So I think they're all going to be so shocked and disheartened that they'll probably, I've got to play for my position. So I'm going to go for Carlton by 3 points. So if anyone's got heart problems, please don't watch next week's game. Okay? So here's our tipping ladder so far. So none of us got any right. So I'm still in front. Peter, you can join me in front, or I could go 2 ahead of you and just still keep the 1 ahead of Vince. So let's see what happens.
And how are we managing Vince? Is that going well, is it, or what?
I don't look, to be honest. I got a message from his lovely partner Tanya, and Vince has been in a lot of pain, and he's getting a lot of sleep. So I don't know whether Vince will be, he's got to pass the protocol, HIA protocol, but I don't think he will. So we might be having Rash again next week. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Anyway, Peter, look, thank you very much for your words of wisdom. We do appreciate it, and we will see you next Sunday.
All right,
see
guys.
You, mate. Have a good week.
Yeah. See you, Rash. See you, Joe. Bye.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, there you go. Peter Brown. He's not short on a few words, and he'll tell you as he sees it. Tell you as he sees it. All right, Rash. Now we get to the fun part of the show. I've got to skedaddle on a few things.
Yeah.
You're going to pretend to be Vince, all right? So pretend that you like horse racing. Do you like horse racing?
Not at all.
No, you're supposed to say, I love it.
Yes, of course I do. No, of course I do. Yes. Go ahead.
You love it, don't you?
Of course.
So Absolutely. It's time for... Okay, so last week, Rash, Big Vinny, he gave us a tip. And as you can see, he gave us for the boss. Vince, no good. No good. Come second. We backed at the win. Anyway, Vince did give us a tip this week. Last week it was at Menangle Harness. This week, it's tomorrow night. It's at 4:27 Perth time, which is 6:27 Australian Eastern Standard Time. He's picked number 8, Fess Up, right? It's, bloody hell, Vince, it's $1.90 favourite. He certainly knows how to pick the short price favourites.
Yeah.
But he's giving us that, and so we're going to have a $10 win on it. Here's the scoreboard as it sits. He redeemed himself last week, got to $60, but after a $10 loss, we're back to 50. So hopefully this week he will redeem himself. So we've had a big show. We've got the executive producer sitting in the background. I might add him for the last 5 minutes just to say on. Good evening, boss. How are you today?
I don't know about boss. How are you guys? Good show. Good show.
Well, you're our executive producer. So, Rock, we just want to go through what's coming up this week on Blue Abroad and the Jumper Punch. So we've got the Jumper Punch show, or the Blue Abroad show with Terry and the boys Monday, 7 o'clock. Jumper Punch, 7 o'clock Tuesday. These are both on the Blue Abroad channel. So if people are not subscribers, please get on there, subscribe. Terry and the boys do a great job. Then on the Jumper Punch channel, we've got on Wednesday, 7 p.m, Forever Rivals. Okay. And do we know who the guest is yet, Rock, or do we have to wait till tomorrow?
No, we can say the guest if you want.
Oh, it's up to you.
Yeah, no, we could say because the promo comes out in the morning. So the guest is T-Bird.
Oh, Brett Thornton. Now, he used to get agitated. He was one that gave feedback, didn't he?
Yeah, no, he talks about that. He actually talks about that. He loved it, man. He got a little bit of white line fever out there. He was a good, honest player. We probably need him in our team just at the moment. He'd be a good fit right in the back there. Just good, honest player.
So let me recap the shows. Monday night, 7 p.m. on Blue Abroad. You got the Blue Abroad show. Tuesday night on Blue Abroad, you got Rocco, Mars, and Paolo doing the Jumper Punch. And special guest, Ange Christou.
Yeah, Christou's on this week, so he gives us a perspective of a past player, of how it is when you're down and about the back line. He actually gives us some good points. It's actually big show tomorrow night. We really really hit the hard topics tomorrow night. There's no holding back, and people are going to find out some truths tomorrow night. So things that will be
Tuesday night.
Tomorrow, sorry, yeah, it's a Tuesday night. Yeah.
That's
People, things that we've been holding on to. So that's it. It's time that not only the club, but it's time that everybody, supporters, because you're all part of this. Remember that you're all part of this. You're also, because you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. We're all part of this, and it's time to get some answers about where this club is going to, because it's definitely not going in the right direction.
No, it's certainly not. And then on the Jumper Punch channel, you have Wednesday night Forever Rivals with Rocco and the Three Loonies. Love Manny. He's a psychopath.
Yeah, Manny's going to be after me. So this will be a big one. And then the Brett Thornton. And then, of course, your show every Sunday next week back to 8 o'clock. But this is the best show on a Sunday. It's especially with Brownie, mate. What a star.
Now, Rocco, we are on the Jumper Punch channel. Please go through the subscriptions that people can
get on. As I said, we appreciate all sorts of help, even if you just push the like. If you subscribing costs you nothing, and it helps us a lot. And with that subscription, you will get 17% off Snitz Northland. How can you go wrong? 17%. And if you become a member of the JP, not a Blue Abroad, of the JP station, you get 25%. So go over to our station, push the join, and become a member. And for as little as $4, you can become a member, and it definitely helps all of us. Yeah, so get on there.
That's right. It's a cup of coffee.
And you help us out. So definitely get on and help us out. And build this community that we're building.
And before we sign off,
before we go, I did get an update with Vince. So everyone that wants to know, he did send me a message. So he's a lot better today. Vince is a lot better. So yesterday he was doing it hard, but today apparently he walked around a little bit and he's up and about, and he sent a couple of messages. So that means, and he actually sent me a message that said he's almost good enough to do the show, but Tanya wouldn't let him do it. So he's already up and about. So it won't take him long, I think. It was a major operation, so it's still going to take him a couple of weeks. But I'm telling you, he's up and about. He's doing a lot better than he was yesterday, and he's on the road to recovery. So, Vince,
that's good news.
Well, buddy,
yeah,
because mate. I'm serious, man. I'm lost without you. We need to go and do those interviews. Come on, hurry up. Let's get better.
So don't forget, people, like and subscribe on our channel. Like and subscribe to this show. Tell all your friends. On that note, it's good night from Joe in Bangkok.
Bye
and good night from you two.
Yeah, that's it.
1, 2, 3.